This is Evie Dolman with WKNC. I'm doing an interview with Goddamn Wolves. Stay tuned. This is that. Yeah, I'm curious, so you guys were talking about your kind of COVID tracks. How, relative to, starting the band, was that we all, just starting or had been, long working together, and then that happened? So I guess alluding to, how'd y'all start and get together, and how long have you guys been creating together?
Well, I guess
Go ahead.
2018 was when we got together. So I guess it had been a couple years when COVID hit, but it did feel like we had just sort of found our voice and we're making some connections and getting some traction, and then, boom. Yeah. I mean, I guess this was the least of the world's problems, us not being able to do our music, but it was a bummer.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying with it's nice live music is coming back, and in the context of a pandemic, music and community are fundamentally healing. So I don't disregard the idea that those are very necessary kind of caveats to existence, being together, fundamentals of, organizational groups of people.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if a lot of the stuff that's going on now is a direct reaction to not having community for, 2 years, and just
Yeah.
being in public spaces with other human beings and having to do Zoom calls all the time.
Yeah,
People maybe also forgot how to be together.
Yeah.
definitely. And even before, I mean, not only was the pandemic isolating, but it was twofold because now everyone is very accustomed to digitally engaging with each other, which is not the same as being in the flesh. I mean, there's something to be said about energy fields, and when I'm even this, I'm seeing you through a computer screen, hey,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
totally
true.
agree. I also think what you said, the impact of everything going digital, including how people are consuming music.
yeah.
There was, and now it's all streamed, and people listen to just a song or two. They're not grabbing albums or CDs or whatever, and they're just checking things out real quickly. They're not actually engaging in it, seeing live music and so forth. And so I'm hoping that comes back.
Yeah.
Well, even the live experience, so a lot of it is spent recording it digitally. I do it myself, but there's definitely been a shift in even the live experience, is that you're kind of tracking content.
Yeah, I'm curious, in that same vein, I was initially, when you guys were talking about that, interested in, especially the live music and, the economy at that, with Spotify, you hear a lot of things about how, artists aren't being attributed, the, correct proceeds and, affiliated money with what they're making. And even so, I was thinking about, their new scroll feature about how you get, 15 seconds of a song, and they've, TikTokified music consumption. So that was something I was thinking about. But when you mentioned, people recording, and you're having that twofold, you've recorded, what is it like to, see a phone in the audience? Is it jolting at all? Have you gotten accustomed to it?
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I haven't really seen it. And as long as there are people in the audience, they can do whatever they want.
That's a good point.
That's
Yeah.
the bigger concern for me at this point.
Yeah, be there, get there.
Be
whatever.
there, right. But yeah, I was just thinking about it as there's just been a huge shift in the past 15 years, I guess. I don't know what the time would be.
And I don't think you can really fight it, right? Some artists like Nico Case will have a sign up that says no phones, but that just comes across as so old and such a killjoy thing. It's you just can't control the audience experience. That's
So true.
up to them.
Yeah. And
With that said, I would add, I do like the venue where there's more separation from the bar and stage or performance area. like one of my favorite venues we have yet to play there is the Wicked Witch, where that bar is actually like in a whole other room, like with a door. And so folks that want to go, and I think it works great for everyone. Like if you want to go and get your drink or talk with people, you stay on that side, and then after you get your drink or whatever, you come in, and then there's a really good separation. So there, you get more people that are going to be more engaged with the music and not worry about ordering and yelling for drinks and all that, and and doing all that. So I like, and Poorhouse is sort of that way, where the bar is kind of further back. It's still in the same room, but it's for folks like us, it's far enough away that it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that does make a big difference too.
Yeah, and then
But
like
I'll
you're not worried about like bumping someone's drink like right as they got it. Like there's space to like, get it down to like a level that you can go in and dance comfortably. Yeah, I think that's also interesting, like layout design for the, group engagement, like what's best. I just went to the local 506 in Chapel Hill, and like that was the first time I've ever seen it. Like,
it's a separate room, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's another good example. Exactly.
yeah, I really liked it there. Yeah, so I'm curious. I have some questions like off the dome. Would you guys want to do questions, or should I whip out the tarot cards? We can do a digital reading.
I really want to do the tarot.
Okay, let's
cards.
see them.
What deck are you using? I guess I'll see.
Yeah, this is one my sister got me. It's like pretty traditional. She has much more like niche ones, like she does like goddesses and like cookbook potions, I don't know, stuff like that. I had to take some off my wall because I use them as decor, and I didn't want to give you guys, a stacked hand or like whatever it's called. But there is one I left because it goes with one of my portraits. So just know.
Which one?
Okay, it's
what
the
are
one
we
that's
missing
like,
out on?
Yeah, just know that this isn't there. It's like 4 swords, and there's a person laying down, and they're like kind of like over him.
Oh, I didn't want that one.
Yeah.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, keep that one over there. Let me see which one.
4 swords. Wait, we might need that.
It says, oh wait, yeah, this one. So the one that I kept out for myself, it's like in a canvas I have, and it says it resembles a moment of rest and contemplation after the chaos. It encourages solitary reflection. So I guess everyone can carry that with them because we cannot tangibly have it in the room with us. But now you emotionally have pulled that card because I will not offer it. Okay. Who wants to go first? I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll like kind of like go like this over the deck, and you can be like, okay, stop. Okay,
I think Chris should go first.
Yeah,
I'll gladly go first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I thought.
I wonder if I can. Okay, this like might be the best option.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep doing this, and if you want to direct like what ones are.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready. Is it ready now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna left, right.
Okay, stop. Yeah, right there. Right under your forefinger.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was good. Okay, this one's beautiful. I think this is the 3 of Cups. Just
3 of Cups. Hey, there we go.
Would you look at that? Okay, yeah. So would you guys want to tell me what this means to y'all? I mean, it seems like you might be hitting a stride, coming back from the pandemic, like new album, we're doomed.
Yeah. Well, for starters, we have a song called 2 Boots that references the 3 of Cups in it. So, and I believe it's actually you should look it up in the book, but I think it's like celebratory or something, or it's
they seem to be cheersing.
Yeah. It's like a good timey kind of card, right?
Yeah, it says the 3 is the card of friendship and camaraderie. It encourages a happy gathering with one's closest friends.
Yeah.
That is definitely what it is. Yeah.
And us.
Yeah. And us, yeah.
Three.
And whoever.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's exciting. I mean, I want to mention, like, your Neptune show coming up. Like, are you guys doing that kind of celebratorily, like, or is it like just the beginning? Like, yeah, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think it's that we're just starting. We're not playing live for a couple months, so this is our second show back playing live. So personally, I'm excited to be out there again.
Yeah. And I had a question related to the Neptune show. I was curious, do you guys enjoy any part of like the production process in that regard? Like, does one of you really like the booking or seeing the different venues, or maybe like, I don't know, do you guys do visuals, lighting cues? Is there any aspect of that kind of like live event production, like kind of being nomadic in that way when you're touring that y'all like?
Well, for the booking, we're pretty lucky now that we don't really have to do any booking. We just generally get requests from like bands coming through town to ask us to open or something like that, or other local bands will ask us to play with them. So that's one thing I really like about reaching a certain level, because I don't think anybody likes booking. There's still a few clubs that I'm actively working on that we really want to play, like Cat's Cradle Back Room, Motor Co., Kings. So those I am still working, but the regular shows that we do, they come to us, which is great. As far as the production, we did purchase a gigantic banner that we've been using. So that's been fun, and that's all I can think of on that we do. We do a little bit of lighting.
The lighting, yeah, the lighting under the floor tom, and Drew's also got a backup. What's it called that goes over the kick drum, Drew?
Oh, I can't remember the company that makes it, but it's like this big sock sort of that you put over a kick drum, and it's got our logo like what's on our shirt.
Did you guys do in-house like design for that? Like one of y'all or all three kind of came up with your designs?
Well, Chris came up with the claws. He did our original logo, which was like George Washington on the dollar, but then his face is clawed with those 3 claws. And then we just kind of ran with it from there. At this point, I do most of the graphics, single covers, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that first one, the iconic 3 claws, that was all Chris.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't find the claws. I think you or Drew found the actual
I found them,
claws.
But that was your idea.
It was my brainchild. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the origin of the dollar and the claw?
The dollar was, I think it was just George Washington with GW and goddamn Walls is GW.
Yes.
I think that was it. And then I thought it'd be fun to have claw marks on his face.
It would be fun.
So.
And look
I
very
mean,
good.
he deserves that.
He does, at the very least.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then some. Yeah, I'm curious, like, because your new, at least the song, but is it an album with We're Doomed? Like, do you like? Because I was relating the George Washington to that, kind of like a political kind of sentiment. Do you guys feel like you touch on that or and play with that, or is it kind of like, or maybe you're coping from it with the music? Like, I guess, how would you relate your new album to current times if you could?
Yeah, I feel like it resonates with the current times, but it was a very unconscious thing that happened, and yeah, it feels like it resonates now, but it wasn't the intention while writing. And then there's another song in there, So Long, that it was written a long time ago before COVID, but then we did a demo during COVID, and then after that, I mean, the album does have kind of a vibe that's it seems part of the situation that everybody's in right now.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to touch on like some of the like vibes that I noticed throughout. Like there's this one song, Everything Real, and I noted that it feels like a little more folky. And contrast to like your kind of classic rock style. So like, how do you guys infuse and dabble and mix genres and channel like those different inspirations? Would you say?
Chris?
Laura.
Well, Chris came up with the music for Everything Real, and then we split the lyrics, so he would have to address how he came up with the song. But I think in general, I mean, he writes way more of the songs than I do, but for me, when I am writing, you know, I'm not thinking about influences or what's going on in the world. You know, I'm just generally, something pops in my head, or I'm just sitting with the bass and I come across something that sounds cool, and you know, and then go from there, just build on it. Like for lyrics, usually it's like one phrase or line that I'm like, that's cool. And what can I keep building on that? And that's pretty much it. So, you know, I'm super influenced by like classic alternative, you know, from the 90s, Pixies, Throwing Muses, but I'm also a super active listener of current indie rock, like, you know, Giant Dog, Mannequin P, you know, all this stuff. So
yeah, we were just saying that.
Yeah, it's all, you know, around.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when writing, I don't really fight anything. So like in terms of folky stuff, you know, it's like when I was in high school and college, I was really into early REM and I love the Beatles, and you know, and I was playing an acoustic guitar at the time, and that just kind of would dictate the way. So in terms of bringing songs to the band, I never think like, oh, this isn't a goddamn Wolf song, because they all become goddamn Wolf songs eventually. So.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, I would add that I would say, especially your songs, Chris. The songs that you bring, I think, and I know you said like you don't bring them with a expectation that they're going to be a certain way. But I would say that, and maybe it's because you start on the acoustic, or when you bring them to us, they're kind of acoustic, and then Laura and I tend to, I'd say, punk it up, right? Like we bring a little more, like we'll make it heavier, right? You know, so it's this kind of a blending of maybe, and so like with Everything Real is Free, that's a song where we kind of stayed more in the way Chris brought it to us, where a lot of the other songs, they come to us more like Everything Real is Free, and then we turn them into whatever they finally become.
Cool.
Laura's always come to us pretty hard hitting as they are, so.
That's cool to see, like, that they're in conversation, you know, with each other. And, yeah, I was also interested in, it says, I wrote down Older, one of the songs.
Oh, yeah.
And it says, I noticed in the beginning that it plays with kind of, like, distortion or, like, kind of a discordant noise. So I guess, like, what are some of your favorite, like, production techniques, and also Prom's eerie style? Like, those kind of, like, you know, I guess fractures or like kind of like jet offs to like your regular kind of punk sound, like really playing with production and like, you know, noise production obviously, and like the tools that production can offer you with like making it sound eerie, making it kind of like screechy and
Yeah, I think we all like that approach and like things that are less expected. And then in this, when we go to record, you know, we don't go in trying to recreate what we do live. Or I mean, I throw on a ton of guitars and stuff, and we come with harmonies and it's especially lately, I feel like the three of us have been more creative in when recording. But similar to working on stuff here in my basement, I think we're all pretty adventurous and we'll just try anything to, you know, find something that we like. And I think the three of us do enjoy like songs that have dissonance or noise or you know quote unquote mistakes or whatever. So we're very open to that.
Yeah, I think like play is definitely an important aspect to like the creative process, and also like a lot of times I find like mistakes or like things that just happen. I'm kind of like, well, that's now part of it, and it makes it quite
Yeah.
unique because you cannot replicate a mistake nor plan for it. So I definitely like
Yeah.
that.
We have a really great partner in the recording process, which is Max Gowan of Found After Dark Audio. That's a studio here that's owned by him and Travis from Truth Club. And Max has been doing all our recording, mixing, and mastering for the last few releases. And he's just really like open to trying things, and we're really open to his suggestions because he has a lot of great ideas. And so that's just been a really fruitful partnership as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think like the collaborative part of it is really awesome because then you can like possibly touch more people because it's like being pulled on by more people.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's a more fun way to create,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, okay. Drew or Laura, which of you would like to have the next poll for tarot?
Drew, go for it.
All right.
Okay. I'm
Do it.
going to show you the deck and I'm going to go like this. And then I'm going to mess it up a little. And you just say stop on my hand when you're like, okay, that's good.
Stop.
Come on.
Yeah. Go to your, should be your, yeah, keep going that way. Keep going that. Stop there. See where your index finger, that one card that's kind of sticking out? The one underneath that one. That one. Yes.
Heck yeah, okay. We've got it. Let's see what it is. Put this back. Okay. Oh, they're also positive. I'm glad that there's nothing like daunting. I know. Okay.
Well,
this
Laura
is-
hasn't gone yet. So.
No,
Wait,
just
let's
wait.
not jinx it.
Yeah.
This
This vibe is, you know.
let it shift. Yeah, this is the Page of Pentacles. He seems very happy with what he has. Does anything like immediately off the bat you're like, oh, this reminds me of this, or I feel this way about it?
When you initially showed it to me, what I thought to myself was Jester.
Jester.
Jester, and I would say I am a jester. I'm a clown. I am a goofball.
A
whatever.
weirdo, as you know,
Weirdo.
someone would say.
I would say that's absolutely fair. So yeah, that definitely speaks to me. Yeah. That
Yeah, I
works.
think I love pulling on those archetypes like Jester, Joker, Pawn. I think those for me, like I play with poetry, so like, you know, pulling on those, like it's super funny because it's like, well, everyone knows what I'm talking about, so I don't need to say it in so many words. Okay. Page of Pentacles, let's see.
We lost him. Please
Closing
come
the
back,
door.
you
That's it.
coward.
I heard my wife drive up, so I didn't want to.
Bring her in here. We've got tarot for everyone. Okay. The page represents inspiration and ambition. It signifies the energy and motivation needed to succeed. Really great. Cool.
Good
Yeah.
one.
That sounds like Drew. Yeah.
I'll take
Good.
that too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that one's pretty awesome and like good vibes all around. Laura, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, your turn. I'm gonna go like this.
Okay.
Tell me when.
Okay, right there. The one to your left that you can see the logo clearly. Yep, right there.
Okay, awesome. Okay, this one is also cheerful. The subject matter, swords are definitely,
Swords.
you know, they could be anything. Let's see how many he has.
It's a 7, right?
Yeah. 7 depicts. Oh no. The 7,
See, I told you. I knew it.
7 can't be good. Okay.
This is very on brand.
Be weary. The 7 depicts betrayal and deception. Be cautious of deceit from others, as well as utilizing it for one's own gain.
Ooh.
Be cautious.
Yeah.
Be cautious, it says.
All right, I will.
And in that vein,
Wow.
you know, be open and loving. That's what I think. This and that. Cool, yeah.
Buzzkill, Laura. Jeez.
Oh, always. Always.
The deck was decked this way. Well, I mean, let's turn it around. Okay, so awesome tarot readings. Really cool to pull for the future. I'm looking at some notes I put down. And you mentioned like the Pixies and other artists that you pull from. Are there any other bands or artists or visual media or people you're pulling from to inspire y'all's works?
Well, visually, the graphics and so forth, it so far has been a pretty direct reflection of my interests outside music, like film noir, like classic films of the 40s that have a dark theme, classic science fiction and horror movies, anything in that vein for sure. So for graphics, I would say that's about it. Someone else can address the music part.
Yeah, well, I would also say that Laura's just does a great job with the graphics. Has a really good eye. In terms of music, there's Guided by Voices is a band that I rip off a lot. And I'm a big Beatles fan and Replacements. And then I listen to whatever Drew and Laura suggest. They're good about being on top of what's happening, like new stuff that's happening. And I've been introduced to a lot of cool stuff through my friendship with them.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and put this plug in right now.
Yeah.
I listen to WKNC all day while I work.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and I still I have Spotify and Pandora and all of the algorithms that curate the music, and you humans, especially you young humans, are doing such a great job of curating the music, and I mean it. I love the music you guys are coming up with, and so that's truly where I get a lot of my stuff from, and of course, right now off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but.
That's true, though. He sends me texts all the time. That I just heard this on KNC. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
So
that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Also, to jump on that too, like if you go to the streaming services and they're like, oh, this is new alternative. It's just not as good as what you guys do. I mean, it sounds like I'm sucking up, but you guys just do a better job than the streaming corporate monoliths.
Absolutely.
Oh wow.
And surely, certainly there are, you guys, first of all, you have a bunch of different programming, and so there are certain shows that there are going to be genres that don't speak to me, right? Like that it's just a genre I don't listen to often. But it's even opened up, so Mondays, when you have Mondays and it's all hip hop and rap. Man, I'm listening to so much rap now, and I love it, and just like that, it has opened me to more genres, and so yeah, it's just been a really good. Even like I said, even with all the algorithms and everything,
right.
you humans are doing such a great job. So.
Yeah, thank you. All those words are really amazing, and I think I'm thinking of the chicken and egg thing, which comes first, the want for the certain music or providing space for diverse collections. And I just wrote a piece for the newspaper saying the largest language learning model is humans, and for my code it's trash reality TV. So, but I love what you're saying. Humans shouldn't we embrace this kind of natural collective thing we've got? And that makes me think about something I thought about when I was talking to Laura about the booking, and I guess music as a network, and how do you guys? I think a creative pursuit and network and integrated into your work and also play in that same way. I guess I'm curious how you guys see work as a model and communities and how those all come together in your specific profession.
Who's going?
That's you.
Okay, that's me. Okay. So I write software for a living. I work for a little company that is owned by SAS, and I would say that the intersection for me there some of my colleagues are interested in the same music I'm interested in. A lot of them have come to our shows. and or we go to see shows together. So there's a little bit of the intersection there, but where you say networking and music and that community, that's a whole other element to all of this local music scene that I absolutely love. Like I feel like I have a whole other life of all of the other bands I go see, I go play with, that we've played with as other bands. I make it a point, especially I like going to see live music all the time, usually smaller bands like ones that are our size or around there, and I make it a point to go talk to those bands every time. I'll talk to the members, just to tell them, I don't think I've been to a show where I haven't loved loved the show, right? I may not love every song, but always the show. There's something about the show that that's always moves me, and I let them know that, let them, that I appreciate the music and appreciate what they're doing, and just that interconnectedness of, I know these people from that band, and they know these people from that band, and then we'll meet each other eventually, and go, oh yeah, so from that band, and that community, that whole there's a network of us that are into music, local music, live music, and a lot of the same familiar faces, all the same people I see when I go to hopscotch, in those huge crowds. I'll still see, dozens and dozens of people every hour that I see all throughout the year. So, yeah, I think it's a great, so it may not fully intersect with my professional life, but I almost enjoy that part of it because it gives me this whole other life of
totally, yeah. And some sort of balance of work, play, and I think the whole idea of totally otherworldly. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have been watching Severance. Can we get a show of hands?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that concept's interesting with any outie, work you, play you. And do you guys see a future in which we are approaching integrating that, as a collective, I guess because you guys are the somewhat creative portion, but also supporting the creative portion, and there's that symbiotic nature of being a local band and supporting the other local bands. So I'm curious, I can't find the question here, but if there's any thoughts on that, jump on it. But if not, we can move forward.
What it triggered to me that you said, and I don't know where we're headed. What I would like to see where we're headed certainly is, I would certainly like to see a lot of these bands that I see, and I don't, not for us, just because we're older, but I'll just leave that aside. But especially younger artists, especially folks, it crushes me that more people can't make a living doing this, like a decent living doing this, right? Some of these bands are huge, they should be even bigger, but they're barely getting by, right? And that to me is a crime, right? It just means I can only surmise that it means there's a lot of artistic expression that's getting squelched. There are a lot of people that aren't able to express themselves artistically because there's too much pressure, or there's not just pressure, there's too much of a requirement to spend too much of our time just surviving, right? Just getting a job, getting money, eating, a place to stay, healthcare, the things that are just crushing the creativity because too many of us have to struggle just for the basics. And that, I hope that changes, right? I hope there's some way that there could be, whether that be a way of funding artists directly or just a way of better wealth distribution so that people can spend more time in artistic pursuits and not worry about their next paycheck and eating and healthcare and all that. So
yeah, and bringing back enjoying life,
Exactly.
Yeah, there's got to be just community interaction with other human beings, a reduction in the exploitation of labor. Just need a massive worker uprising.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I look forward to the future where like, these like local music events like EDM or like any other music, like where they're indistinguishable from our uprisings themselves. Like, and you see that kind of in parallels of like rave attire and, kind of the mask and protest attire and the mask in that way and utility. So I'm looking forward to harnessing, music as revolt, personally.
Right. I mean, I'm hopeful that that we're inching closer to that with just the way things are now. It's clear that the only response that's going to work is actions outside of the institutions that exist, and I think. And I think especially younger people, and then you've got older people like us supporting it and doing what we can. But rethinking everything, because it's just not going to work the way it's going now. I know art and music has always been very exploitive, but there is a chance to take it back if people get together and interact. I think in both a non-digital but also in a grassroots, like in-person way.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, a professor I was talking to was mentioning like not only like how it's not enough to survive, like in a lot of these apocalypse stories, like we see them wanting for more, creating art still, passing around stories, like it's not enough to survive, like we need that like emotional and spiritual fulfillment. Yeah, and like you're saying, like the way forward is like outside, thinking outside the box, creativity. And yeah, I think intersectionality will be pivotal. I had something else, but I forgot it, so it must not be important.
Well, I was going to say, if you check out the lyrics to We're Doomed, it's actually not all doom and gloom. If you check out Chris's lyrics, he's really saying in there, when everybody gives up, that's when we're doomed, right? If you think this protest, well, he doesn't get specifically political, but there's always more that we can do. So.
Yes, that's a good point. Like, it's really never over.
Right.
And we can, asymptotically, like, approach this, like, atrophy, but, like, we can never get there, like, fundamentally. And I think, like, there's just so many of us, and, everyone going through different things at different times. At minimum, one person will always have hope. So, I mean, and, just getting at least two. Oh, I remember the thing. My professor that I was talking to, she does, like, rhetoric, and she was saying, like, when you have two people in the space, and then they're not, like, their dialogues go past each other, like, that's when we're at a standstill. And so I think what we're saying with, like, community and reform, like, I think, and that's why, like, I'm happy to be talking to y'all about this. People making art, people interested in art, inspiring, like, we have to let the politics bleed into what we're doing, because otherwise we'll bleed from them. So I guess in that vein, what kind of advice would you, dispel to people looking to inspire their creative, people looking to express themselves, people looking to even organize collectively, to end on kind of like an inspirational high note, moving forward? What would y'all say?
Do it. Just do it. Like, that's, like we've, we don't really get anything out of this band other than being in the band. Like, we don't like make we don't make money, we don't whatever. But I get so much out of it, and it's like the highlight of my week, my month, whenever I get to meet up with Laura and Drew and play music, either at rehearsal or in a live show or recording. It just keeps you going, and even if no one sees it, even if you're writing a song in your bedroom and you finish a song, you wrote a song, you wrote a poem, or you made a painting, whatever. Like, it does, even if you just I'm sorry, it just makes the world a better place. And I think we get trapped into like, well, if nobody if someone from the outside doesn't appreciate it, or if you don't make money from it, it's not valuable. It's extremely valuable. It's really all we got going for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and just get out there and experience as much live music and art exhibits, whatever your thing is. Take in as much, support as many artists as you can. Just keep it going.
Keep it going.
Absolutely. I combine both of those statements and say, you know, I think it's important to get out and see live art, like in every way. When you're seeing live music, if you're going to see an artist who has completed a painting or working on a painting or a sculpture or whatever, you know, it's important. That in and of itself is support. That in and of itself is community, right? It's all tying that together and making it a expected way that we should be moving through the world, right? It's not, oh, there's that weird guy that goes sees the live music all the time or whatever. Right? It becomes it's the expectation. Oh yeah, you know, Thursday nights we're going to see. We're always going to see that. We're going to see this, right? That should be coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what Drew said too before about like going up to bands that like support other people who are putting themselves out there. They'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate it a lot, and it will lead them to keep going too.
Yeah. Reinvigorating like a kindness economy. That's just kind of like, I see you, I love it, keep it up.
Yeah,
that's
beautiful.
Yeah, well, I want to thank y'all for spending the time talking with me, you know, sharing what you think, reading the cards, you know, sharing time with WKNC. It was wonderful having y'all on. This is Goddamn Wolves. I'm Evie from WKNC. And yeah, that's that.